here throughout the months of October and November if they want to get their guy back with any hopes of playoffs. Green Bay, meantime, back in the win column. And we are back with the guys to assess some of what we saw here. We'll get to Green Bay in a moment, but the story, JJ, throughout the week was Joe Flacco's addition, how ready he would be to take the helm here. What did you see in that regard in his first start in Cincinnati?
He didn't hurt the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Jake Browning was actively hurting the Bengals. He was throwing multiple interceptions a game. They weren't going to win those games. They got very fortunate that they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars when he came in relief of Joe Burrow, having thrown 3 interceptions to win that game. And it continued on. And so they go out and they trade for Joe Flacco, someone who had no more future with the Cleveland Browns. And frankly, he looked this season like he looked last season with the Indianapolis Colts, effectively washed. What we saw today was someone who understood the playbook. And trust me, the Bengals were feeding him information as soon as the trade became official to get him prepared. He also knew the defense that he was going up against, having prepared for Green Bay just a couple of weeks ago as a starter for the Cleveland Browns. So not surprised that he was effective enough, especially with the wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Didn't turn the football over, protected the ball well, but ultimately he did not, and the Bengals did not make enough plays in order to really threaten the Green Bay Packers.
Mac, do you see it the same way? I'm also looking at a Chase Brown who's averaging 32 yards per game this season on the ground, goes for 42 in this one. You have to be able to complement in the run game, and Cincinnati's still playing at a deficit in that regard.
That's the bigger concern for me. I think when you talk about Joe Flacco, to JJ's point, just becoming a Cincinnati Bengals, coming into play, playing against a playoff caliber team, high-level defense, and not being the reason they lost. Joe Flacco played winning football, in my opinion. I don't like the 45 passing attempts, but because they can't run the football, they put all of the pressure on Joe Flacco, and that's the concern. Chase Brown, when we were getting ready for this season, when you look at some of the predictions at the running back position throughout the National Football League, many feel like Chase Brown potentially could be a top 5 to top 7 type of runner because of what he did last year, along with being more acclimated to this system. And so far, we haven't seen anything to what we've witnessed with Chase Brown towards the end of 2024. What's the issue? Now, granted, the offensive line has been horrible, but at some point in time, you got to find a way to mix up or dial up something that can get Chase Brown going to provide a sense of balance. They're not going to win a lot of ball games relying on the quarterback to throw the ball north of 40 times.
Emery, I want to keep talking run game, but I want to take you to the Packers side of this conversation because it was a team that was effectively running the ball essentially at will today. And it seemed like in times and obvious rundowns and scenarios, they were reluctant to do so. Do you see that as their shortest path to victory on any given day, running the football with Josh Jacobs behind that offensive line?
It's a great question because it kind of ties both teams together. There's a difference between can't and won't. Green Bay can run the football, and so sometimes they won't. Cincinnati doesn't want to run the football, although they can. And so when you look at Green Bay, anytime they want to get the offense back to neutral, they lean on number 8, they get the ball to Josh Jacobs, and he kind of balances out the offense, kind of calms things down, and gets the quarterback to play a little bit more calm and a little bit more on pace, on schedule. With Cincinnati, we see them refuse to run the football and puts everything on the passing game. No matter who is that quarterback, it just doesn't work for them. So if you're Green Bay, I hope you take the seeds of knowledge that you've seen that work for you in terms of Josh Jacobs, and then also now relying on Jordan Love, because if you try to go Love then Jacobs, then you're playing losing football. And it doesn't matter who is the offensive lineman for Cincinnati. If you're not running the ball, you're not giving that offensive line a chance. And I think that's why we've seen Green Bay have success. We saw the Raiders in their game have success when they decide to run the football to calm their quarterback down. Cincinnati is playing losing football, and that's why Green Bay is playing winning football when they're relying on their best offensive player, which is Josh Jacobs.
5.2 per carry for Jacobs here, 2 touchdowns and a 27-18 victory for Green Bay. JJ, do you see it the same here for a Green Bay Packers team that was left to stew over a tie for an extended period of time?
Yeah, they needed to get back in the win column. You said it to start this. This is a Green Bay team that after the first 2 weeks of the season, we said, are they going to Super Bowl 60 in Levi Stadium in the Bay Area? And then what happened? And it was a loss, and then it was a tie, and then it was the bye, and you're waiting on Micah Parsons to have his name called in some way, right? You're waiting on Jordan Love to not just put up the video game stats, but to really, truly win them those football games. And that had not yet happened. And so today it was, I would probably consider it more of a ho-hum day, right? They just did what they needed to do against, frankly, we got to be honest about it, an overmatched team, a Cincinnati Bengals team that since Joe Burrow went out and since someone else other than Joe Burrow has started, 0-4. right? This is a Bengals team that we said they need to go 500 while Joe Burrow's out for about 3 or so months. They're now 0-4. They're 4 games in the hole. So I think we could probably write off the Bengals at this point as we start to write back on the Green Bay Packers.
So we have taken out the red Sharpie, although this one blue, on 2 members of your division. I don't know if did we Sharpie the Ravens?
You can't, just because of how the schedule continues the next 11 games.
Sheathing the Sharpie.
Yeah, but
maybe we Sharpie those Cincinnati Bengals.
Facts.
When you look at the Green Bay Packers right now, what impressed you in this performance, or what do they need to focus on moving forward?
Josh Jacobs is a grown man. I would love to see him get more opportunities. I felt like if he would have received more opportunities, he probably would have been north of 130 yards on the ground. Look at what he did in the passing game as well. As a receiver, I wanted to see more from the defensive front, the edge rushers for the Green Bay Packers, only sacking Joe Flacco once. Joe Flacco's not a mobile quarterback. He's more stagnant in the pocket. You felt like this would have been a great opportunity for Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary to go hunt. They didn't hunt a lot, but hopefully we see more of that, because that's what you expect to see.
Stop playing with your food.
Flacco able to distribute to his top target in moments here. Jamar Chase games with 10 receptions and a receiving touchdown in NFL history, already climbing that leaderboard. And we got a final between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the San Francisco 49ers as the Bucs improved to 5-1, 30-19 in what was lingering as a one-score game for much of this one, but Baker Mayfield's playmaking ability once again on display, 256 and 2 touchdowns. And for more, it's always our pleasure to take you out to the site where lead NFL analyst Tony Romo joins us. Tony, this was another exciting one, and I want to go to Baker first and foremost here. What is impressing you the most or catching your attention, not just about the ability, but the downfield accuracy, the variety of throws, and the variability in playmaking right now for the lead quarterback there for Tampa Bay?
He's in that sweet spot of his career where his footwork, his arm talent, and his knowledge of the game all come together, and his athleticism was shown again today. He's slippery, he always gets out, but his instincts, I mean, he's looking off as well as anyone in the National Football League, and his arm talent, it's way up there right now. He's throwing balls that not many quarterbacks, are throwing right now, and he's putting them right in that exact spot. I mean, I couldn't be more impressed with the way that Baker Mayfield is playing. Second
favorite in the MVP odds at last check, behind only Josh Allen, speaks to what he's been able to do early on in this season. I don't think it's a bridge too far to climb to that other sideline and pose a question of their quarterback, because we've seen time and again that situation can dictate success. Baker spends a little time with McVay. Darnold spends a little time with KOC. What's Kyle Shanahan doing for Mac Jones' career right now?
Well, you heard us when we were on the air when I talked about that, because I was going through this week. I was like, what's funny is that resurgence of these quarterbacks. The one constant is they each go, whether you call it the quarterback whisperer, but they learn the game and learn how to think at the quarterback position a little bit differently when you get around McVay, you get around O'Connell, you get around Kyle Shanahan. And I think you're seeing these guys really perform at a high level because it tightens up the way you think, and it allows you to kind of be like, oh. And it doesn't mean they haven't been around good coaches. It's just there's just a certain spot that where you're at in your career matches when you go with them. And I think there's a reason why each of these coaches goes out and gets these guys. They see something in them that they think they can work with, and it's shown. And I think Mac Jones has shown that. Today he got fooled twice on interceptions, but I think it's the reason why they were 4-1 coming in a lot of ways because they brought in Mac Jones.
Tony, you and I, we often sit here and wax poetic, about quarterback play, but I want to talk about a quarterback of the defense for the San Francisco 49ers. We're likely not going to utter the name Fred Warner for the remainder of this season, and he remains one of the great defensive players in this league and maybe underappreciated players. For a team already so touched by injury, what does San Francisco lose there in Warner?
Well, I think he found once Warner went out, there was way more open looks for Baker Mayfield. People were wide open, and in the NFL, that's rare. There's people busting on coverages, and one of the touchdowns to Johnson, and then there's other ones where it's just like someone's playing too slow and they didn't get to their spot quick enough. So much of that is because the leader of your defense communicates what the coaches tell you, and he goes ahead and tells the D-line, right, Roy, left, hey, cross that off, boom, here we go, down. And it's like that all happens in 2 seconds. That guy's gone. Nobody else with 8 new starters on that defense has even remotely the ability to communicate like that, much less his talent and ability, because he was playing at a Defensive Player of the Year type of level up to this point. And, that hurts your heart for someone like that who works so hard. He's one of the good ones, like just people you root for.
Yeah, he was unfortunate to see him go down in that fashion, and we hate to go out on a morose note, but wishing a speedy recovery there to the star linebacker in San Francisco, Tony Romo. We always appreciate your time here on HQ.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Ed.
So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers improve one better, taking down the San Francisco 49ers here.